pornography. First question. And so you are a formally trained urologist.
Correct.
And a part of your specialty is in managing sexual health.
Yes.
Huge part of it, really. And I'm just going to shoot a bunch of questions at you that I think a lot of people have seen kind of mixed into the ether, but very few people have pulled out and really examined.
Sure.
What actually counts as porn?
Yeah.
I know there's that famous Supreme Court justice. I know it when I see it, whatever. I have my own technical definition, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, it's interesting because I think porn is, modern day porn is very different from what it used to be.
Okay, pause. Because my next question, you can just do two at a time here, is porn new or have people been using it a while?
Right. So I think it depends on your definition. So if you think about like looking at erotic things, right? So
cave paintings,
right? So yeah, prehistoric times we found cave paintings of sex. But then, in like ancient Roman times, they would actually have like phallic structures. And they would use them as like to ward off evil spirits because they were like so ridiculous that like they thought that for some reason they would ward off evil spirits.
The evil spirits like, this is too much cock. I can't be here.
And then there was like obviously paintings of like, sex, and people thought it was like this thing to be celebrated, right? And then ultimately it came to the first like true pornography, I guess, was like some etched images that were shared in the 1500s with like wealthy, the wealthy society.
Check out this etching, bro.
Yeah. And so they would like share them and they would like look at them and it was like totally fine and normal. And then it became like this sort of like negative thing, right? Looking at any sort of erotic literature. And then, printing presses came. And so there was like instruction manuals and there was like different types of things. And then ultimately there was like, it became, the magazines and
media.
Media. So it became like Playboy. And that's when really like there was a lot of negative energy around erotic, like anything, right? Like watching, seeing, looking at pictures, right?
Sure.
VCRs came, right? And then that's when like, I think modern day porn really became a thing, but it was also very difficult to access, right? Like you had to go to those shady stores and like rent a video or like find a stash of videos and then find a VCR that nobody was watching. And like, so it was like a whole big thing. And it was very different from what it is today because we didn't have cameras in our pockets and they were very expensive. And like, there was a whole thing, right? So it was much difficult back then to get the kind of variety of porn that you see today. And then it became initially online and it was behind paywalls, right? And then it was like difficult to access. And then eventually it became what it is today where it's like on ad platforms, but like you don't pay anything to use them.
Ubiquitous and functionally free.
Correct. And very accessible and very copious, right? There's just so many different kinds. People are constantly making it because they're like user generated, right? So they're generating their own and like people are, watching and then they just keep making more and more and more. And so it's become very different. And so I think I think porn is what you define it to be. It's basically looking at some sort of erotic visual materials. It could be a photo, it could be a video. But I think when you think of modern day porn, you think of video and you think of these like, these videos where you're watching people have sex.
Yes.
And sex can include oral, anal, kinks, all sorts of different things.
Yes. I guess to me, porn, my most preferred definition of porn, I think is the most kind of like cogent, is media generated for the primary or sole purpose of erogenous initiation in the consumer.
But that could be anything.
Well, so if it's intended to arouse,
but I mean, think about
porn.
like a movie, right? It can be arousing without showing sex. So is that porn?
I think it is.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
Like, I don't think you need in and out, what does my wife call it? PIV, penis and vagina. I don't think you need that to constitute. I think someone who watches an incredibly intricate striptease where the woman starts in a cool outfit and then just gets down to like a bikini, if you can't show that to fourth graders in school.
Sure.
And you can't be like, well, technically it's not porn. That's absolutely porn because it's designed by the people who made it to basically instantiate or sustain erogenous feelings as the primary purpose. Because if you say, well, now hold on, lots of Hollywood movies have tons of kind of sexual things in them. And like the purpose of most Hollywood movies, all Hollywood movies, isn't that, but that could be like a part of the story.
Could,
the primary
sex
purpose.
sells, so maybe
sex
it
sells.
is part of the primary.
But maybe, and then it would be like, whoa, this movie really crosses the line into like, when the plot is really light, and you're like, why isn't this just in the adult section? Why did I rent this? I thought this was a thriller, and half of it's just people having sex. Okay, so that's porn. I love that you said that it's changed over time. What is what's new about porn over time as it evolves? I've heard a couple of suggestions. One is like immersion, that it used to be you just looked at a photograph. Now you have VR video. That probably hits different in the senses, does it not?
Yeah, and there's not a ton of data yet on that. Like there's some, like a few handful of papers looking at like VR immersion. And I think it is very different. It's just not widespread yet. Okay. But I think the immersion, what I would think of immersion in a different way is like the OnlyFans type of situation where the person is like actually interacting with you.
Okay.
Right. So it's like this borderline, like they're strip teasing, they're doing other things intended to arouse you. Right. And then they're like, oh, they're interacting with you. So now you are part of it.
That's different.
That's different.
That's very different than reading Playboy, which you would have to have a lot of schizophrenia in order for the people on the page to interact with you, I suppose. Right. Here's another one. I'd like your take on it. A fetish for everyone is an observation I've made about the evolution of porn that I think maybe is astute. In the 1980s or 70s, you had Hustler, you had Playboy, whatever, I wasn't around that, just dirty mags. Yeah. And it's kind of like most of the girls looked sort of the same, very just blasé. Great, but blasé.
The same.
And the same. And, like two themes, blonde and brunette, that's what you get. And so nowadays, because of the ubiquity of the internet and because of user-generated content, I mean, gee whiz, like if you go fetish hunting, that is not a road that will end ever, because there's always crazier fetishes than you thought. There's always hundreds of videos with those crazy fetishes. Like, where the hell are these people coming from? That changes the landscape quite a bit for how people experience porn, would you say?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you think about the way porn is delivered today, and I'm talking about the general like porn sites, right? There are other ways to see porn, right? There are still porn behind paywalls that are different, or ethical porn or different things. But if you're looking at like, the regular porn sites, the thing you're thinking about here is like, it's like Netflix. They are curating your experience, right? Yeah. They're showing you stuff based on what you've watched before, what you've liked, and they're trying to get you excited about something new, to keep you on the platform, to keep you watching, to watch more ads. And so it is very curated, but it's also exposing you to things that you're like, oh, this person might like this because someone like him or her liked this and also liked that. And so you're like discovering new things. Now, is this good or bad? It depends, right? I think if it's like, hey, I'm learning new things that I could incorporate with my partner, right? Or like with someone else safely, consensually. I'm like, oh, this could be really fun. Add novelty, make sure my sex life doesn't like fizzle off and die into a sexless marriage. I think that's a good thing, right? Sure. But in other cases, like for example, choking has become really popular. And
Scott, take notes.
A lot of younger kids are seeing choking in pornography, and then they are choking their partners, and usually it's male to female, but it could be the other way around. And there's consent because like, okay, yeah, that could be cool, but they don't really like know how to do it safely necessarily, right? Because choking, you're asphyxiating someone, you could really cause harm. And think about it from a female perspective. You have a strong man like choking you, that's kind of scary for some women. And they've just sort of kind of acquiesced to having this consensual experience, but they're like, I don't really know if I'm into it, but I'll try it. And so that's kind of scary, right? So where you're like getting exposed to these things and you're like, oh, well, I see it all the time in porn, and the actors are like so excited and enjoying this experience. Like, of course, my partner is going to like this. And then when your partner doesn't respond in kind, you're like, oh shoot, what's wrong with me? Because now you've seen and no one's telling you what's normal or not. They're like, oh, you're only seeing porn. Your parents haven't talked to you about it. School didn't talk to you about it. Your friends might talk to you, but like how like, valid is that commentary?
Right, everyone's 12 or whatever.
Yeah. And so you're like, okay, so now you're like, what's wrong with me? Who do you talk to? Nobody. You just like live with it. You're like, oh, I'm bad at sex, or like I don't know, my partner doesn't find me attractive or whatever, right?
Yeah. One thing I've seen with porn that is, if you don't understand this, you're going to set yourself up potentially for some uncomfortable scenarios like you mentioned. It's very simple to understand, but again, nobody really talks about this, so most people just go completely bereft of this knowledge. And it's the following. Almost all porn, not all porn, almost all porn is people in positions doing things to each other that is visually and auditorily erogenous to the consumer.
Correct.
And the intersection of, well, are both people in positions and doing things with each other that maximize their own fun is partial, sometimes minimal, sometimes high, but there's just no guarantee.
Right.
Like there's all kinds of exotic sex positions they'll do in porn where you're like, I tried that and my triceps cramped after 30 seconds. There's no way people are enjoying it. And it turns out like, no, it's actually just a cool camera angle. Because like then all of a sudden you see what you need as the person behind the camera. But the people doing it, they're actors. They're doing a job. And if you were like, hey, the two of you do actually have sexual chemistry? They're like, no, hell no, we're just at work. You're like, wow, okay, that one's gone. Okay, what if you did have sexual chemistry? Would you be having sex like this? You're like, no, absolutely not. This is all literally for the camera. Like literally so parts of us that are attractive could be seen by the camera. There's nothing to do.
Yeah.
So if your only teacher of how to make love to one another is porn, you're going to learn a lot of good stuff. And you're going to learn a lot of stuff that simply does not apply.
Absolutely.
Is that an issue with today's younger folks?
Oh my God, so much. So much. I mean, like, I really feel for the younger generation because I think like, because there was less education and there's never been great sex education, but like you had to actually like just figure it out with your partner, right?
Yeah.
Like you actually had to just like figure out what they liked and like,
poke. Do you like this? They're like, okay, poke somewhere else.
You know, if you were good, wanting to be a good lover, you would do those things, right? You'd have to figure it out or somebody would have to tell you, right, what they like. And so you would use that as your educational background. But now, because there's this abundance of online consumerism stuff, they're like learning from there. And I think like, yes, there are things you can take from there that are good and that do help you become a better partner. But there's also a lot there that is just, as you mentioned, made for camera. They're using special effects. They're using like a ton of like, you know, lube to make it look like your ejaculate is huge and like voluminous when that's like not even naturally physiologically possible, you know? Or like everyone's squirting when again, like that's not everyone's reality and that's okay. But like now we're like, oh, what's wrong? She didn't squirt. Like, oh, man,
I'm a failure.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's definitely a problem. And so I think that problem is best solved by essentially folks who are curious, letting them know that, hey, there's this whole other side to how to please one another. You're probably not getting a lot of that in porn. Porn's cool as a fantasy, but I would say my best analogy here offhand is learning how to make love to people, truly other humans that you want to please and please yourself, is kind of like learning how to fight by watching Hollywood fighting movies. That's not how real fighting works. Sometimes it looks pretty similar, but there's a lot of stuff where that'll get you killed in a real fight.
Right.
And doing that in bed with someone who's uninitiated to it, they'll be like, what the hell are you doing to me? And you're like, I thought this is what girls like. What kind of porn are you watching? Like porn intended to get me to splooge within 1 minute and just targeting males between the ages of 18 and 25. She's like, yeah. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. That's nothing to do with how real women have pleasure or anything like that.
Right. And you need to sort of, I think the other thing that people forget is like sex is like a mindful state, right? You need to get into sort of like a flow state. But if you are too stressed about what you're trying to do, because you're like trying this new position or you're like trying this new, whatever it is that you want to do, and it's like awkward and uncomfortable. And like, it's just like when you're learning a new skill, when you get into that, like it's just slightly challenging and you get like a flow state, the same thing can happen. You can do something challenging, but it can't be too challenging that you're going to be frustrated. Yes. And so I think the same thing applies, right? When you're with a partner, like, and you're trying something new, like you have to be somewhat comfortable in trying it and don't like be like, okay, I'm going to like, you know, lift this person up off the ground and like hold them for 20 minutes while I like that's not going to work right away. Like you don't, you have to build up to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very well said. Okay. Another, potential problem with porn. I don't want to problematize on purpose, but I think this might be an issue, at least a different challenge for our modern generation. Because I have at least one video where I kind of I suppose I kind of defend porn from people that are like, it's toxic and it's destroying society, which is just total bullshit, let's be honest. But they have very valid points for a small subsection of the population. Here I'm going to take a different perspective of talk about how can porn misused be pretty toxic. And so my next two things are, I'm going to kind of combine them for you to go riff on them. One is instant buffering and almost unlimited variety. Like if you have one pornographic video cassette and that's your go-to, which starts at some point and ends at some point. By some point, you know the scenes and you like what you like. That's what you need.
You don't like the timestamps. You're just like, play.
Yeah. Yep. And so, and I guess auto preview is another thing. So it's instant buffering. You can buffer up 5 tabs and just as soon as you don't even remotely isn't ideal to be on one tab, you just switch to the next one. You can scroll through to see the preview images of whatever you're interested in. And if even those two things don't do enough, you just scroll down the page and it's like related videos and you go all the way down, you hit load more, and that load more for some sites never stops. Like it's just forever.
Right.
How is that exposure to essentially the nudie mags of the 80s are like a drip And then today's internet is like a fire hose of porn.
Yeah. So
how does that modulate things?
The way I think about it, right, is think about like, 100 years ago or even less, right? You would court a partner, right? So you would spend all this time, like you just hold their hand and you would work your way up to finally kissing them. And then eventually sex would come, but it would be like months, right? And so there's all this buildup, right? And now there's no buildup. And so like, I remember, I always think about this, one of my friends from medical school, he's like, spring in New York is the sexiest time. Cause like women are wearing skirts and like, it's like, oh, I can see legs and it's beautiful. And I'm like, now like there's no excitement because you don't need to wait for spring, right? Like it's always spring if you want it to be. And so I think part of that is like you're desensitized, right? It's like what gets you aroused is now something very intense. And so the challenge there is like, okay, you watch this type of thing all the time and you get so much of it. And then when you're with a partner, like they can't compete with that arousal that you're getting, right? They're not like, yeah, they can do different things, obviously, and you're obviously turned on by them, but it's not going to compare to some very like intense novel stimuli that you're getting from like load more, right? Because there's like an unending thing of things you can watch. And so that's the challenge, right? It's like if you are like really aroused by these things, your brain starts like building, just sort of like it becomes sensitized to that. It's like, hey, like you are habituating to that. That's what I was thinking. So you're like, okay, I see this. This is how I get aroused. It always works for me. I use the same thing every time. I use these 5 videos, whatever it is. And then you're like, oh, I'm with a partner and like, oh, it's just not as quick or it's not as robust. And like, okay, as a guy, you're like, oh, my erection's not as strong. Oh my God, something's wrong with me, right? Like my dick is broken. Like I can't get aroused. And so now you're like, oh, something's wrong with me. So now you're ruminating on that. You're stressed about that.
Rumination's so hot. I'm kidding.
and now you're okay. Then you totally lose your erection. Yeah. And now you're like, oh my God, I'm broken. And then you try again and you're stressed. You're thinking about it. And now it's still not working. And so like now you've given yourself this like terrible like mental block with sexual activity with a partner. And then you're like, okay, well I can still get it with masturbate, like when I masturbate and watch porn. So like
that's all curated for me.
Yeah. And so like, okay, I'll just keep doing that. Maybe it's my partner. They're just not hot enough. Right. And then you're like breaking up with someone who could potentially be a great partner. And so there's like a lot of issues there, I think, that really do come up for some people don't, right? And I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people watch porn and they're fine. They don't watch it, like they don't get immersed because they're like, okay, I don't want to be immersed. I want to like still enjoy my partner. I just use it for a short period of time or whatever. And I'm fine. I still get turned on by my partner and it's not an issue.
Those are excellent points. Two things come to mind for me. One is it is a huge super weapon for people to be able to have completely different expectations for online pornography and in-person sexual interaction. If you mix those two together, confusing times are going to result because you actually can't buffer a different person's actions ahead of time. That's nonsense. The other thing that hits me is it is absolutely possible for folks to get away from physical sex and into digital sexual self-arousal because of the benefits and huge, like just cornucopia of porn that is out there. What I will say is I think for many people that's buffered significantly by one fact. Seeing a phone-sized video image or even a laptop-sized image or however people are jerking it and audio, whatever, the number and integration of human senses that you get from making love to an actual physical human being is like orders of magnitude more powerful. And so if I would love to hear your thoughts on this. To me, it was always confusing that there were folks whose porn habits were severely degrading the quality of their physical interaction. Because to me, like the smell, the touch, the taste, the interactivity, being able to watch your own touch please someone deep down is some shit porn does not have. And that's like maybe 95% of why sex is fun. And so where are folks going wrong? Or maybe it's just their own biology that they can allow porn consumption to so badly sully their physical interactions. So for me, I'm not some fucking genius guy who's in his head like, oh, I'm going to catalog this as this, that. To me, it was just porn is super fun. But after you wank it and you clean yourself up, you really generally the reaction's like,
Yeah.
It's not like, oh man, that was so amazing. You're just like, yeah, but shit happened, but it took 15 minutes, whatever. Whereas with a human person in front of you, my God, you could take hours for that sort of thing. And those are very well paid hours, I might say. So how do we get folks to realize those are two different categories of sexual interaction and to treat them very differently?
Yeah. Well, so you're on the nail, right? If you look at actually brain studies of people touching themselves versus being with a partner. I mean, being with a partner is like way higher responses in terms of like your brain waves. Like you're seeing much higher responses. So we know that like, yes, categorically your brain responds much more favorably to a person. And there are fibers on your skin called C afferent fibers that are really only stimulated by someone else's touch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so there's actually there's a frequency of touch that like really stimulates them. So like the slow, gentle caress stimulates them. Boy. And so like the things you do normally, but you like right. There's a scientific reason behind it. And you cannot even, so I learned this from a neuroscientist, Dr. Nicole Prowsky on my podcast, but even with a gloved hand cannot stimulate them. It has to be human touch.
Scott, cancel the the glove orders. Thanks. Sorry about that. Just technical stuff, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's accurate, right? What you're saying is completely accurate. Now, what I think happens is that if you're watching porn and that's your education, when you go to a partner, it is literally like penis and vagina sex immediately, right? Like you're not foreplaying, you're not doing anything. You're just like, oh, this is what I see on sex. Let's get right to it.
And that's a mistake typically.
Yeah. I mean, like most people, so women on average need like 25 minutes to get fully aroused. So men are a little bit faster, right?
25 seconds for men. Go on.
But like to get fully aroused, meaning that she's getting lubricated, her vagina is widening and lengthening to almost double its normal size. And so she's prepared to be penetrated and she's turned on. Like
psychologically, that's the biggest one though, right?
Yeah.
It's like lube, not lube, whatever. That's a solvable problem with P. Diddy's lube stash. Oh, but don't you
use
kink
baby
shame
oil,
P. Diddy.
Please. Don't use baby oil.
Is that really not ideal for that?
Yeah, don't use baby oil. No. Yeah, you should.
Scott, cancel the baby oil orders. You're going to have to explain that one.
Yeah. Well, so basically baby oil it can be irritating, right? And that's a very sensitive skin. So you want to use lubricants like water-based lubricants, silicone-based or oil-based lubricants that are designed that are like hypoallergenic that, are good for the genitals.
For the sex.
Correct.
Really, couldn't P. Diddy look into that? I mean, he's got $1 billion.
If you're going to use oil, you can use olive oil or coconut oil. But
did you say olive oil?
Yeah.
Scott, Italian Fantasies Volume 5. We're recording it tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, I couldn't do the smell of olive. I'm sorry. Coconut oil is great.
It's a little thicker. It's not as runny,
Good God. Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's a trip. The psychological element of arousal, because you talked about physiological ones, which is spot on. Like you're not going to be doing a lot of fun sex if it's not lubricated. 100%.
Right? Yeah.
But the psychological component is huge because that's the big unlock. That you don't have to worry about in porn because the other woman's not a woman. She doesn't exist. She's just pixels and she's already quote unquote aroused in a very fake way.
And the thing about it is what we don't realize is like, when you're teenagers, you have a lot of arousal very quickly. It's called spontaneous desire, right? You see your partner, you're like, I want to jump them. They're freaking hot. Like it doesn't take much. Yep. But when you are older or in a long-term relationship, you have what's called, a lot of people, not everyone, has responsive desire. So, and throughout your life, everyone will have some of this, right? Where like, you like your partner, but you're like, meh. And then you start like actually like being receptive to them. They come, they touch you, they hold you, they whatever, right? And you're like, oh, I used to like this. Yeah, I kind of do. Oh, I like this, right? But you have to actually like sort of have some foreplay or be together or be naked or touch each other, whatever. You have to do something, right? The desire is not just going to come. And so like you want your partner to be turned on. You want blood flow to go to their genitals. And so you basically—
How curtly put.
You want them to be like excited about it. And so it's all sort of altogether, you need to be psychologically aroused. But when you feel arousal, then desire often follows.
Yes.
So if you allow arousal to develop, even if they're not maybe feeling desire right away, they can have responsive desire. Now, this is not to say that you should, do this with someone who's not, consensual. But
for sure.
But to say that like if your partner is receptive and they're open to just being with you and you're just like touching and hugging and it can get there.
Yep. Yeah. And so would you agree with the fact that treating in real life sexual experiences and treating porn consumption should really be kind of pretty different parts of your operating and like approach as male or female?
Right. I think that the real issue is that we treat sex as this very binary thing. It's like, okay, sex is penis in vagina. that's it, or penis in whatever orifice. And it's not, right? It's so much more than that. It's the whole aspect of intimacy that people lose and they just stop doing, or they're like, oh, and yeah, quickies are fine once in a while. Like, it's no problem. But like sometimes lovemaking and intimacy and good, great sex requires time. And we joke in sexual medicine and in the like sex therapists will always say like foreplay starts in the morning. It's not like just before sex. Like you want to make your partner feel desired and wanted like well before
Plant
you're
the
having
seed.
sex. Yeah, it's not that hard. Just like, rub their back or like, hey, you look beautiful today. Or you look great today. Like just small little things that really help them get in the mood.
Sure. We'll have more questions on that later. On the porn stuff, we're going to finish up the dirty work of porn.
Yes.
Real quick before I continue. Scott, you look great today.
Thank you so much.
Planting the seed.
Ready?
Maybe not. Mystery. They like mystery, don't they? Yeah. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Scott, what do you think about that?
I like when I thought you were getting me ready before.
Wow. He likes what he likes.
He's direct. It's good. I like that.
Easy communication.
I like that. Yeah.
What a pig.
Right.
Wow. That degraded rapidly. Scott and I have a very complicated sex life.
I can see that.
Let's talk about the downsides of porn consumption for the at-risk. So quick caveat based on our sum total of the empirical knowledge, we're talking about a group of people that is something like 5% of the people that consume porn. So it's a minority, very, very small minority. But if you multiply 0.05, the mathematical expression of 5%, onto the US population, we're talking about tens of millions of people. So this is still like a big deal. So there are very, very, very many people that have unhealthy relationships with porn. What do you think are some of those mediating factors? What sort of things behavior-wise should folks who think they might be at risk tend to try to avoid and lean away from in your experience? Like, what are the downsides and how do we get away from them?
Yeah. So when you look at data on porn, and they call it problematic porn use, or there's like compulsive sexual behavior is sort of now a diagnosis that incorporates sort of problematic porn use. But what you see about these people often is that they're using pornography for purposes like they're having negative emotions, they're bored. And so they're not using it for the traditional like pleasure, learning new things, exploring. They're actually using it as a coping mechanism for something else, right? And so that's sort of a red flag. So if you find yourself like, oh, I feel like crap and I'm always going to porn, that might be a red flag, right? And so also if you feel like shit every time you use pornography, like you feel terrible, like you're like, oh, I did this and oh God, I'm such a bad person.
Afterwards or during or what?
Like meaning like you're like, oh, you did it. And I'm like, man, I'm such a bad person.
You feel guilty. This is something you shouldn't be doing, but you're doing.
Yes. And that's something that you need to work on. That means that like, your emotions are your emotions, right? But like that is probably going to get yourself into a situation where you're not going to feel good about yourself, right? Because you're going to use it invariably, and then you're going to keep feeling guilty, and that's going to cycle. So the two big things I would say is like to look out for. But but what I've also seen is that a lot of times people who use porn abundantly and feel bad about it. And abundantly can be very different for different people, right?
More than they would ideally pre-program into their head going forward.
And the reality is that some people, even once a year is too much for them. So it's very individualized. Like they just feel such shame and guilt after using it that they're like, oh my God, I should never use it, right? And so that it depends on the individual person. Like people are like, what's the right amount of time? Like how often? And it's like, no, there's no perfect number, right? It's really when you start feeling guilty, or you start like really like saying like, oh, I'd rather watch porn than like go hang out with my partner, or I'd rather watch porn than like go hang out with my friends or do things with real people or like whatever, right? You're finding yourself just like hiding in the room and like watching porn and all that. So that's when
like every addiction has the same.
Right. So they have similar features, right? And like, oh, are you needing more novel stimuli? Like every time you need to watch something more intense, more erotic, more like crazy and different, then that's another sign potentially. Or like you feel like you're withdrawing. Those are all signs of addiction, right?
What do you mean withdrawing? Can you
like you're like, oh man, I gotta watch it. I gotta watch it. Like I feel like, you feel uneasy. You feel unsettled, right? You're like, I gotta get to it. I gotta do it.
And what about if when you feel unsettled and you got to do it, but then when you do it, it's not that great and you get guilt? Is that kind of the trifecta of a real bad situation?
Yeah. Or it could be great, but it's like very short lived. And like it's shorter and shorter.
You wish you could just have it again.
Yeah. And so like I've actually asked, like, is it a compulsion or an addiction when you talk about the brain? It's actually more of a compulsion than an addiction. But essentially it's you're compulsory, you're using it compulsory all the time. And so this is an issue. And then you really have to, at that point, sort of like people will be like, okay, you got to stop cold turkey. But the reality is when you try to stop cold turkey, it's actually not a good methodology to treat yourself because you will invariably fail at some point. Most
it's a natural
people do.
drive. It's like stopping eating or drinking.
Most people do, right? Like, yeah. And then they're going to feel so much shame and so much guilt because they failed. And that just makes it even worse, right? And so really doing like working with a therapist, working on like sort of acceptance and thought training sort of things. There's different techniques that they have to sort of help you work through your thoughts around pornography and like really work through it. That's actually much more successful in terms of if you're struggling with it. And then also like figuring out these underlying things like depression, anxiety that often go hand in hand with people using pornography or having these compulsory behaviors.
Okay. Let me construct what I think your narrative is and throw a spoke in your wheels really quick.
Yeah.
You're saying that if I work with myself and I'm no longer checking the boxes of compulsive activity that I regret, I have excised pretty much all shame away from this activity. It's not ruining my life. I'm doing it 5 times a day or whatever. It's once a day or once every other day, whatever, for 20 minutes, who cares? And it's totally hunky-dory with me. My own sexual relationships are totally encapsulated. Everything's going great. You're saying like, wait, like fucking rock on, man. Like, okay, all right.
Well, the only thing I would add to that is so this comes up, right? Because sometimes partners have a hard time with you might be fine with it.
Let's say the partner thing is totally fine.
The partner's fine, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, or you don't have a partner and you're whatever, just freewheeling. This is not my personal opinion, but I want to give justice to all of the perspectives here. Some folks will say that, like, okay, it's good that you're not ashamed anymore, but also it's bad that you're not ashamed anymore. Imagine you're a criminal and you do a lot of retail theft. You just like a dress on the shelf and you just take it, put it in your purse and walk off. No one gives a shit. It's San Francisco. It's not even illegal, let's say. And someone would say like, oh, like I feel really bad. I'm constantly ripping people off. I know they're big corporations, but regular people work for those. And the therapist is like, you just honestly don't need to be worried about this. You don't need to be shamed. So you just lose your shame. And you're like, wow, you do like, hit a couple mushroom hits. You like let the shame dissipate. And then you just steal to your heart's content and it's fine. People would say like, no, there's something wrong with stealing. You should be ashamed of it. And even if you're not ashamed of it, just don't do it. So there are people who say, look, if you come to terms with a quote unquote healthy relationship with porn, there is no such thing. Porn is somehow toxic to you. It is psychologically toxic and it will break parts of you don't even know are being broken, and it'll leave you worse than you were as a fundamental human, as a man, as a person of psychological cogency months or years down the road. Is there anything to support that conjecture for the vast majority of people? Is it just some people porn rots through the inside out, or is it really no one and you're kind of bringing your own issues to it? What do you think? Because that's the big fear is like, no, don't normalize porn. There's no healthy use of porn. It's all bad. And it's whether or not it catches up with you now or in a year or two is the big difference. I don't hold that opinion, but I just don't know much about it. What do you say to that?
So there's actually no evidence. So there's a lot of like, oh, it's giving you this huge dopamine rush, right? There's a lot of that on the internet. Like, oh, you have porn and you watch.
It's not that big.
So actually you get a much bigger dopamine rush from having sex, right?
But Rena, but like real talk between two humans.
Yeah.
By a fucking factor of 1,000.
Right.
Like, are you fucking kidding me?
And it's not the porn, right? If you actually look at like brain studies, when people are watching porn, they get a little like, okay, their visual cortexes light up, whatever. But when they touch themselves, okay, now more lights up. Yep. But then they have sex with a partner and everything lights up, right? So it's really not damaging your brain in some like, oh, porn itself is damaging your brain, right?
We know that pretty well.
There's no scientific evidence that like there's something happening on a brain level that's like altering your neurochemical, like that doesn't exist, right? Okay. So that's one. So two, then I would ask like, okay, so you're comparing it to stealing. Theft has a financial implication, right? You're harming society.
You're harming other people.
Right, you're harming other people. How is porn harming anybody else? If your partner's okay, if you're doing about your life, like how is this harming someone else? So, right, there's no, like, what is it harming you individually? You might feel shame about it, but like it's not harming that person and they're not telling you about it. So like, what does it matter?
Right.
So that's why. And then the other big argument I would have is like, 90+% of the population watches porn. If you look at like estimates, right?
Yeah.
So like, okay, we're all doomed to die and like go to hell. Like porn, like
maybe
I mentioned.
Maybe it's the biggest low-key public health factor of our time. You don't agree with that?
I don't know. I think orgasms are a great part of our, you know what I mean?
That's
like,
actually better than not.
Yeah, I think orgasms are great. I don't think it's the porn, right? I think orgasms are great. But I think that like, porn has been around. Like I mentioned, there's been forms of watching or seeing or worshiping sexual behavior in some way. And so like, why are we now like, yeah, I agree that like having unfiltered access to porn and having children see porn at young ages and all this sort of stuff is not good.
Yep.
But I do think that many people learn to work around these challenges and like use porn in a healthy way. And there is data that porn is good. So there's data that porn, especially in women, allows them to know their bodies better, have better, more sexually satisfying relationships with their partner, and actually have more sex with their partners when they watch porn. And so that's one. And two is when you watch it with your partner, like if you use it together as a tool, right? It's a tool. It's a tool for arousal. So you use it together, you actually have better sex and you actually have more satisfying sex. And so like there's clear evidence that yes, porn when used in certain ways can be helpful.
Very interesting. So that supposition that porn is somehow inherently toxic, even if you don't absorb any of the toxicity, is like we're just being scared over a pretend demon.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
That makes a lot of sense. It's sort of similar to being like, if you overeat junk food, you will become obese and it'll be real bad.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a really great meal with family every now and again, that's not exactly macro friendly, like that's just a big part of living life. And if you cut that out of your life, like, is life kind of worse now?
Yeah. Or like all seed oils are bad. Like, right. There's no all or nothing, right? It's a totality of like your diet, for example, the totality of what you're consuming, let's say, right? It's a totality of your sex life. If it's all porn, that's bad, right? But if it's some porn and some healthy relationship and, more healthy relationship than not, that's what's important.
Yes. One last question for you on this part here. Can you give us like maybe 2 to 4 checklist items to tell folks watching this if they can really rudimentarily not diagnose is a shitty term to use around a real doctor, ascertain probabilistically if they are in a healthy or unhealthy and needs attention relationship with pornography? What are like, do a couple check boxes for us of if you check this box, you need to kind of rethink your thing with porn. If you don't check the box, no need to rethink at least that thing. What do you have for us? 2 to 4, however many check boxes you think would really paint a good picture.
Yeah. So I think one is like, how do you feel after you use porn? Right? Like think about that. Like take a second the next time you use porn and be like, how do I feel about this? Like, do I feel neutral? Do I feel good? Fine. No problem. Do I feel kind of bad about it? Do I feel like something's wrong? Okay. Not because porn is bad. It's because those thoughts that you're having can become, can sort of stimulate a negative cycle.
Yep.
And so I would just take a second to just think about how you feel and then be like, okay, well, why do I feel this way? Like sort of like dig a little deeper. And then, when you're using porn, do you feel like you have to like hide in a corner and feel super bad about it? And some of
what
that's
if it's
society.
arousing for me to hide in a corner?
Well, then that's fine. But some people like, right, we do it because like it's you want to be alone. You don't want to be caught, right? I get that. But like if you're like, oh my God, I'm going to get in trouble. Like I'm going to, and it's really like all the time where you're feeling this like constant fear, like, oh, someone's going to walk into me and it's going to be disaster. I'm going to ruin my marriage or whatever, right? Like then, okay, why are we thinking this? Like there's something there. Otherwise, if you feel good, if you are enjoying you're enjoying masturbating to porn and you're having a good orgasm and it's a great release and you go to bed or you do whatever, then you have some post-nut clarity and you feel great and you're like, okay, fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
No way.
Yeah.
And you said before, I just want to clarify, porn use frequency is incredibly individual. So for someone 3 times a day could be totally normal and just like, I got real talk. If you have enough manhood inside of you, bro, some people need 3 times a day. Otherwise, they're not safe to be around anymore. And they just, all they think about is sex,
Right. Yeah.
That's like a real thing.
Yeah. Some people absolutely like, it's just like, it doesn't take them that long and they just they just do it and they're done and they feel better and they're like on with their life.
Yeah. It's almost like eating food when you're really deep into a work project. Like you don't want to take time for a meal. You have a few protein bars and go back down to work on the computer.
Right.
Same thing can be said for like, if you just have a really high sex drive, but you're not, trying to be an adult film star, you just like whack it a few times a day, deal with it, and it's gone kind of thing. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that.
Yeah. And sometimes, so the one thing I will say is sometimes people with a high sex drive will be like, I abstained and now I'm great. I don't have to deal with this anymore. It's because like inherently when you stop having a lot of sex, whether it's with a person or with yourself, your brain will sort of down-regulate that desire, right? And so yeah, that sometimes works for some people. Like, oh man, sex was consuming me and I was thinking about it all the time. And I finally abstained for however long. And like, now I don't think about it anymore. Like, I'm so great, you know?
But for some people, it goes completely the opposite. Whereas if they abstain, they just get psychotic about it. And then once they whack it or get laid somewhere, they're like, oh, thank God.
And then the other thing that happens, which I don't think many people talk about, is like the pelvic floor, which is this bowl of muscles that we sit on. It can get really, really tense because you're like holding it in all the time. You're
is
like,
that
oh my
what
God.
blue balls are?
No, blue ball's a little different. But this is like actually where you're like tensing up your pelvic floor. It's just like like any skeletal muscle. If you were to hold your bicep like this, right, for like a day, like you'd start having pain or discomfort. Same thing. So just like you clench your jaw at night and you wake up with a headache, it's the same thing. You don't have real conscious control of it, but it tenses up. And because you're holding back, you're like white knuckling, trying not to masturbate. And so you're tensing up that pelvic floor. And then you create all these problems. You start having pain with ejaculation, pain with orgasm, urinary frequency going all the time.
Have you been reading Scott's emails to
me? And you're getting like constipation. And so it can be any of those symptoms, but a lot of it can come from a tense pelvic floor. And so like, I really worry about those patients where they're like, they've tried to do something that they thought was going to be good for them. And now they've developed this like disorder. They have to like train their body out of.
Oh my God.
Like they have to go to pelvic floor physical therapy and do stretches and exercises.
How's No Nut November? Like, not good, bro. It screwed December and January completely.
Yeah. So it's a real thing. And I think like no one talks about it and they just like deal with it a lot because guys don't go to the doctor, right? As often as, you know, women, for example. And so they just sort of white knuckle it and get through it. And, you know.
I'm not going to have a doctor interfere with my masculine pride, Miss Rena Malik. And so I've never seen a doctor. Too late,
you're married to one.
Damn it. That's why I don't have any pride. This was incredibly instructive. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.